Nearly 1 year after the mass shooting in Uvalde, law enforcement only disciplined a handful of officers for their mangled response. Thanks for being with us. I'm Britt Moreno.
I'm Daniel Marin. This Wednesday marks a year since 19 children and 2 teachers died during that mass shooting at Robb Elementary.
The Department of Public Safety fired 1 agent and suspended another.
Our Monica Madden obtained internal documents that led to Texas Ranger Christopher Ryan Kindle's suspension and explains why DPS leaders are conflicted about his fate.
He believes he's barricaded in one of the offices.
An assumption with catastrophic consequences. Officers on scene classified the gunman as a barricaded subject and not an active shooter. This 41-page report from the DPS Office of Inspector General details how misinformation fueled that assumption. According to call logs and interviews in the report, Texas Ranger Kindle heard the faulty information before he even got to the school. At 11:49, a DPS Del Rio dispatcher told Ranger Kindle it's a barricaded subject. And the documents reveal iterations of that misinformation were continually shared to the 376 officers on scene.
Inside this building, we have him contained.
When Kindle arrived, more than 50 officers from various agencies were already on scene. Kindle told investigators he heard various radio broadcasts where officers described the gunman as contained, detained, barricaded, and barricaded in an office. An oddly quiet scene with officers just standing around added to that impression, according to a memo from the Ranger's assistant chief. It states one UPD policeman even speculated the suspect might have committed suicide after a 10 to 15-minute lull in gunshots.
Hey, that's the first I've heard it.
Our team presented these documents to Uvalde Mayor Don McLaughlin earlier this year.
We shouldn't have assumed anything. We should have just figured there were kids in that class.
The mayor says he's waiting for updates in the investigation that so far haven't come.
Why are we being pushed out? Makes me double down. Is there a cover-up going on?
McLaughlin says he's unable to get records from his district attorney or DPS about police response on May 24th.
If I've got officers that need to be addressed or let go or disciplined, then it needs to be done. Until I can tell what my officers did and I can prove what they did, I can't hold them accountable.
Ranger Kindle also told investigators other officers pointed to Uvalde School Police Chief Pete Arredondo as the incident commander.
Chief is in there. Chief's in charge right now. Hold on.
Arredondo refutes that, saying he didn't know he was in charge, despite the district's active shooter plan directing its police chief to assume command. Arredondo was fired, and Kindle is the second DPS employee to face discipline over response to the Robb Elementary shooting so far.
I think they're just sacrificial lambs. I mean, they were the easiest to pick out and the easiest to let go. I think that, at some point you're going to have to look at your leadership and say, what went wrong that day? What did we do wrong?
I want to highlight in Ranger Kindle's termination papers, it cites that he should have known that it was an active shooter situation and then taken action from there. But in a June testimony to the Texas Senate, Director McCraw said this.
Let's say a DPS captain shows up and a situation decides, well, he's going to exercise control. Well, first of all, he doesn't have the information. And you know what? He may not be as sharp as the on-scene commander that's there. In addition, not having the information. So I'm reluctant to encourage or even think of any situation where you'd want some level of hierarchy where a larger police department gets to come in and take over, that type of thing.
Internal memos we obtained show both the Rangers chief and assistant chief strongly recommending against any repercussions for Kindle after finding, quote, no fault in his actions last May. The memos also note at least 50 other officers were already involved on scene by the time Kindle arrived. We spoke to multiple DPS sources who requested that we keep their identity secret because of their ties to the agency. Those sources say that it's highly unusual for the department to take action against an officer if that action goes against the wishes of other top leaders. The other DPS officer fired was Sergeant Juan Maldonado for not taking more action in the moment. Monica Madden, back to you.
All right, Monica, thank you very much. And it's now been 135 days since Director McCraw recommended Kindle's termination. Kindle has the ability to defend himself to McCraw before a final decision about his employment is made. But our sources say McCraw hasn't scheduled that meeting just yet. We did ask DPS for their response, and the agency said it doesn't comment on personnel matters. Our complete investigation is online right now at KXAN.com for a closer look at the internal documents that explain these decisions.